The great doors of the Kirin Imperial Palace had not opened for an unplanned visitor in over 50 years. The Kirin people were organized. They were careful. Everything happened according to schedule, and nothing surprised them. But today, the doors opened. A woman stood at the entrance. Her clothes were old and torn in places. Her feet were bare and dirty from travel. Her silver hair, the mark of Kirin royal blood, was tangled and unwashed. She looked like a beggar, like someone who had crawled out of the worst parts of the galaxy. But on her neck, glowing with a soft blue light, was the royal birthmark. The mark that only those born to the imperial family could carry. The mark that could not be copied or faked. The guards raised their weapons. Then they saw the mark. Their hands began to shake. "It cannot be," one of them whispered. The woman walked forward. She was not alone. She held the hands of two small children, one on each side. A boy and a girl, no older than 6 years. They had silver hair like their mother, but their skin was warmer, softer. Their eyes shifted color like true Kirin royals, but there was something else in them. Something steady, something unafraid. The woman spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. "I am Princess Vela of the Kirin Empire. I have returned to claim what is mine." The court hall fell completely silent. Nobles who had been talking stopped mid-sentence. Servants dropped their trays. A child somewhere in the crowd began to cry, and even that sound faded quickly. Princess Vela had been declared dead 7 years ago. Her shuttle had been attacked during a diplomatic mission. The wreckage was found. There were no survivors. The Empire had mourned her for 100 days, and then they had moved on. But here she was, alive, walking into the palace, like she had never left, and she had children. Outside, on the landing platform where Vela's small ship had touched down, a man stood in the shadows. He was not Kirin. His skin was brown and warm. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and still, watching everything. His name was Park Taiho. He was human. He was also Vela's husband. Taiho did not enter the palace. He knew better. The Kirin did not like humans. They saw them as primitive, emotional, and chaotic. A human walking into the imperial court would cause more problems than it would solve. So he waited. He watched the doors close behind his wife and children, and he prepared himself for whatever would come next. Inside the palace, a message was sent to the highest level. The Empress was in her private chambers. She had not attended open court in months. She was old now and tired. The loss of her daughter had broken something inside her that never healed. When the servant told her the news, she did not believe it. "You are mistaken," she said. "My daughter is dead, Your Majesty," the servant said, his voice trembling. "She carries the birthmark. It is her." The Empress stood slowly. Her legs were weak, but her will was not. She walked to the throne room, each step feeling heavier than the last. When she arrived, the crowd parted for her. And there, in the center of the room, stood Vela. Mother and daughter looked at each other. 7 years of silence stretched between them. The Empress did not run to embrace her child. She did not cry. The Kirin did not show such emotions in public. Instead, she walked closer, her eyes moving from Vela to the two children. The twins looked back at her without fear. The girl had a small scar on her chin. The boy stood slightly in front of his sister, protective, like a tiny guard. The Empress saw their features. The silver hair was Kirin. The royal eyes were Kirin. But the warm skin, the round ears, the steady and stubborn gaze, those were not Kirin. Those were human. "What have you done?" The Empress whispered. Vela did not look away. She did not apologize. She did not explain. "I survived," she said simply. The Empress stared at her for a long moment. The entire court held its breath. "These children," the Empress said slowly, "they are yours?" "Yes, and their father. He is human. His name is Park Taiho. He saved my life when the Empire left me to die." A gasp went through the crowd. The words were sharp, and they cut deep. Vela was not just announcing her return. She was making an accusation. The Empire had abandoned her. A human had not. The Empress's face did not change, but her hands tightened at her sides. "You have been gone for 7 years," she said. "You return with no warning. You bring half-blood children into this sacred hall, and you speak to me of blame?" Vela stepped forward. The children stayed close to her. "I speak of truth," Vela said. "I was captured. I was sold. I was enslaved. And while I suffered, the Empire declared me dead and moved on. It was a human who came for me. It was a human who fought for me. And it is a human who gave me these children, who are stronger than any pure-blood Kirin I have ever known." This was dangerous talk. This was against everything that Kirin believed. The Empress raised her hand, and the room went quiet again. "You make bold claims?" "Daughter, I make true claims. Mother." The two women stood facing each other. The throne was behind the Empress. The open door was behind Vela. Neither of them moved. Finally, the Empress spoke again. "You will be given chambers. You and your children. We will discuss this matter in private. The court is dismissed." The nobles began to leave, whispering to each other as they went. But everyone understood what had just happened. The dead princess had returned. She had brought something impossible with her, and the Kirin Empire, which had not changed in 1,000 years, was about to face something it could not control. Outside, Taiho saw the nobles leaving the palace. He read their faces, their confusion and fear. He took a slow breath. This was only the beginning. 7 years before, Vela walked back into the palace. She was locked in a cage on a mining colony at the edge of known space. The colony was called Dust Point. It was a terrible place where criminals, refugees, and slaves were sent to dig valuable minerals from dead rocks. The air was thin and tasted like metal. The guards were cruel. The workers died often. No one cared. Vela had been there for 8 months. She remembered very little about the attack on her diplomatic shuttle. There had been explosions, screaming, then darkness. When she woke up, she was in chains, being transported to a slave market on a station she had never heard of. Her royal birthmark meant nothing out here. The pirates who captured her did not know what it was. They only knew she was Kirin, and Kirin slaves were considered valuable because they were rare and exotic. She was sold 3 times before ending up at Dust Point. In those early months, Vela waited for rescue. She was certain the Empire would come. She was the eldest daughter of the Empress. They would search for her. They would find her. But the months passed. No one came. She learned later that the Empire had found the wreckage of her shuttle. They had found bodies. They had declared everyone dead, including her. The official mourning period lasted 100 days. After that, her name was added to the memorial wall. Life continued. The Empire did not search for ghosts. On Dust Point, Vela stopped waiting. She stopped hoping. She learned to survive. She worked in the mines during the day and slept in a crowded cell at night. She ate whatever food was given to her. She did not complain. She did not cry, but she also did not give up. Some of the other slaves broke. Their spirits died even while their bodies kept moving. Vela refused to let that happen to her. She watched the guards. She learned their schedules. She noticed which doors were weak, which cameras did not work, which tunnels led to places the guards never checked. She was planning to escape. She just needed an opportunity. The opportunity came in the form of a human supply pilot named Park Taeho. Taeho flew cargo runs through the outer territories. It was dangerous work, but it paid well, and he was good at it. He had been a rescue pilot during Earth's war with the Vorn Collective 10 years earlier. He had pulled soldiers out of burning ships and crashed stations. He had learned to fly in conditions that would kill most pilots. After the war, he could not return to a normal life. So he took his skills to the edges of space, where people did not ask questions and the rules were different. Taeho was not a hero. He was not trying to save anyone. He was just a man doing a job, but that changed when he landed at Dust Point. He was delivering medical supplies and machine parts. Standard cargo. But while his ship was being unloaded, he saw the slaves being moved from one section of the colony to another. He saw Vela. She was thinner than she should have been. Her silver hair was dirty and cut short, but she walked with her head up, her back straight. She looked at the guards with eyes that were not broken. Taiho had seen many slaves in the outer territories. Most of them looked at the ground. Most of them had given up. This woman had not. He did not know why that mattered to him. But it did. That night, Taiho made a decision that would change everything. He bribed a guard for information. He learned that the silver-haired woman was scheduled to be transferred to another facility in 3 days. A facility known for working slaves until they died. He could not let that happen. Taiho was not a soldier anymore. He was not part of any military or government. He was just one man with a ship. But sometimes, one man was enough. On the night of the transfer, Taiho cut the power to the eastern section of the colony. In the darkness and confusion, he moved through the tunnels with a stolen guard uniform and a small weapon. He found the cell where Vila was being held. When he opened the door, she looked at him with suspicion. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who is leaving," he said. "You can come with me, or you can stay. Choose now." She chose to go. They ran through the dark tunnels together. Guards shouted behind them. Alarms began to ring. But Taiho knew the layout. He had memorized it during his delivery run. He led her to a maintenance hatch that connected to the landing bay where his ship was waiting. They reached the ship just as the guards caught up. Taiho fired back, covering Vela as she climbed aboard. A shot burned across his arm, but he did not stop. He jumped into the pilot seat, started the engines, and launched the ship into the black sky. The colony tried to follow. They sent 2 patrol ships after him. Taiho flew like he was back in the war. He pushed his small cargo ship through asteroid fields and radiation clouds that no sane pilot would enter. The patrol ships fell behind. One of them crashed into a rock, the other gave up. When they were finally safe, drifting in empty space far from any station, Vila looked at Taiho. "Why did you do that?" she asked. Taiho was wrapping his wounded arm with a piece of cloth. He did not look up. "I do not know," he admitted. "You looked like you were still fighting. I wanted to give you a chance to win." Vila was silent for a long moment. In the Kirin Empire, people did not act without reason. Every action had purpose, had calculation. This human had risked his life for a stranger because of a feeling. It was foolish. It was irrational. It was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever done for her. "My name is Vela," she said finally. "Taiho," he replied. He did not know she was a princess. She did not tell him. For the first time in her life, she was just a woman. Not a royal. Not a symbol. Just Vela. They flew together into the unknown parts of space, where the Empire could not find them and the past could not follow. They learned to trust each other. They learned to rely on each other, and somewhere along the way, they fell in love. 3 years later, Vela became pregnant. Every Kirin doctor they found said the same thing. Human and Kirin DNA could not combine successfully. The children would not survive, but the children were born healthy. 2 perfect babies, a girl and a boy. They named them Yuna and Heian. Taiho looked at his children and smiled. "Humans do not die when we are supposed to," he said, "and neither do our kids." Vela held her baby's clothes and finally allowed herself to feel something she had lost long ago. Hope 3 days after Vela's return. The imperial court gathered for a formal hearing. The great hall was filled with nobles, advisors, scientists, and military officers. Everyone who mattered in the Kirin Empire was there. The question before them was simple but dangerous. What should be done about Princess Vela and her half-human children? Prince Sorel stood at the front of the hall. He was Vela's younger brother, and for the past 7 years, he had been the crown prince. He had grown comfortable with that title. He had made plans. He had built alliances, and now his dead sister had returned to take everything from him. Sorel was tall and handsome, perfect silver hair and cold blue eyes. He spoke with confidence and authority. "My lords and ladies," he began, "we face a crisis unlike any in our history. My sister, whom we mourned and honored, has returned. This should be a joyful occasion. But instead, it is a threat to everything we believe." He paused, letting his words settle over the crowd. Princess Vela has brought children into this sacred palace. Children born from a union with a human. This is not simply unusual. This is an abomination. The word hung in the air like poison. Vela sat in a chair near the front, her children beside her. Yuna and Heian were dressed in simple Kirin clothing that had been provided to them. They looked small, surrounded by so many adults, but they did not cry or hide. They watched everything with curious, careful eyes. Taiho was not allowed in the hearing. He waited outside, in the quarters they had been given. But Vela had promised him she would handle this. Sorel continued his attack. For 1,000 years, the Kirin bloodline has remained pure. This purity is the source of our strength, our telepathic abilities, our long lives. To mix our blood with that of lesser species is to weaken ourselves. To destroy what makes us great? Several nobles nodded in agreement. I do not doubt that my sister suffered during her time away, Sorel said, his voice becoming softer, almost kind. But suffering does not excuse what she has done. These children, whatever they are, cannot be recognized as royal heirs. To do so would be to tell our people that our sacred bloodline means nothing. He turned to face Vela directly. One proposed that Princess Vela be welcomed back to the family, but stripped of her place in the succession. The children should be sent to a care facility in the outer provinces, where they can live peacefully, away from the politics of the court. Vela stood up. The room went quiet. You speak of purity, she said calmly. You speak of sacred bloodlines and ancient traditions. But let me ask you something, brother. What has our purity given us? Sorel frowned. What do you mean? Our birth rates have been falling for 300 years. Our people are fewer with each generation. We do not adapt. We do not change. We follow the same traditions, make the same choices, and slowly, quietly, we are dying. Murmurs spread through the crowd. These were uncomfortable truths that few dared to speak aloud. The humans, Vela continued, spread across the galaxy like fire. They adapt to every world, every condition. They survive where others fail. Not because they are stronger or smarter, but because they refuse to accept defeat. They change. They grow. They find ways to live when all logic says they should die. She looked at her children. My children carry both bloodlines. They are not weaker than pure Kirin. They are stronger. They have abilities that should be impossible. They are proof that the future does not belong to purity. It belongs to those willing to evolve. The Empress, who had been silent until now, raised her hand. Enough arguments, she said. I want facts. Bring the royal scientists. A group of elderly Kirin, in white robes, stepped forward. They had been studying Yuna and Heian since their arrival. Running tests and examinations, the lead scientist, a woman named Lady Orin, bowed to the Empress. Your Majesty. We have completed our initial analysis of the children. And what have you found? Lady Orin hesitated. She glanced at Sorel, then at Vela, then back at the Empress. The children are remarkable, she said slowly. By all known science, they should not exist. Human and Kirin genetics have always been considered incompatible. Previous attempts at hybridization centuries ago all failed. Yet these children live, the Empress said. Yes. And they are not merely alive. They are exceptional. Lady Orin pulled out a small tablet and displayed some data. They can regulate their body temperature like humans, which allows them to survive in environments that would harm pure Kirin. They heal faster than either species. And most surprisingly, they show early signs of telepathic sensitivity, something that has never appeared in any half-blood before. The crowd erupted in whispers. Telepathy was the most sacred Kirin gift. The idea that half-human children could possess it was shocking. Sorel stepped forward angrily. This is impossible. The tests must be wrong. We ran them 7 times, Lady Orin said quietly. The results are consistent. The Empress looked at the twins. For the first time, there was something other than coldness in her eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. Or something deeper. You, she said to Yuna. Come here. Yuna looked at her mother. Vela nodded. The little girl walked forward until she stood before the Empress. Are you afraid of me? The Empress asked. Why UNA thought about this seriously, the way children do when they want to give an honest answer. No, she said. My Appa says that being afraid is okay, but we should not let fear make our choices. You are very tall, and your voice is loud, but you have not hurt us. So I am not afraid. Your Appa, the Empress repeated. The human. He is the bravest person I know. He flew through a fire cloud once to save Mama. He said his ship was screaming the whole time, but he did not stop. Several nobles laughed softly. The image of a ship screaming was funny and strange. But the Empress did not laugh. She studied the child with intense focus. And if someone tried to hurt your family? The Empress asked, what would you do? Yuna's eyes, which had been friendly and open, suddenly became very still, very serious. I would stop them, she said simply. Whatever it took. The Empress leaned back. She looked at Vela, then at Sorel. The hearing is postponed, she announced. I will make my decision in 3 days. Sorel opened his mouth to protest, but the Empress silenced him with a look as the crowd began to leave. Vela took her children's hands and walked toward the exit. She passed Sorel, who stared at her with hatred barely hidden behind his calm face. This is not over, sister, he whispered. No, Vela agreed. It is not. Outside the hall, Tai-Ho was waiting. He saw his family approaching and immediately checked them for any sign of harm. How did it go? He asked. Vela allowed herself a small smile. Our daughter told the Empress that you are the bravest person she knows. Tai-Ho looked down at Yuna, who smiled up at him. I only told the truth. Appa Tai-Ho knelt down and hugged both his children tightly. That is all anyone can do, he said. Tell the truth and hope it is enough. But in his heart, he knew that truth was rarely enough in places like this. Power was what mattered. And somewhere in this palace, someone was already planning to take everything from them. He just did not know who yet. 2 days before the Empress was to announce her decision, the palace organized a ceremonial flight over the capital city. It was an old tradition, meant to show the royal family to the people below. Thousands would gather in the streets to watch the golden shuttle pass overhead. The Empress had ordered Vela and her children to participate. It was a test of sorts. If the people saw the half-human children and reacted with anger, it would influence her decision. If they reacted with acceptance, that too would matter. Vela understood this. She also understood the risk. But she had not survived 7 years in the outer territories by avoiding danger. Tai-Ho was allowed to come as the pilot. This surprised everyone, including him. But the Empress had insisted. She wanted to see the human who had captured her daughter's heart. On the morning of the flight, Tai-Ho inspected the shuttle carefully. He checked the engines, the navigation systems, the emergency controls. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect, perhaps, but he found nothing wrong. The shuttle lifted off smoothly. Inside, Vela sat with the children, who pressed their faces against the windows to see the city below. Tai-Ho flew the craft in a gentle circle over the main square, where tens of thousands of Kirin had gathered. The reaction was mixed. Some people waved and cheered. Others stood in silence, their faces hard. A few held signs with angry words about purity and tradition, but many, especially the younger Kirin, looked up with curiosity rather than hatred. The silver-haired children in the window were strange and new. They represented something the Empire had never seen before. Change. The flight was supposed to last 20 minutes. They were 15 minutes in when the first alarm sounded. Tai-Ho's hands moved instantly to the control panel. Red lights flashed everywhere. The main engine was losing power. The navigation system was offline. The backup systems were not responding. What is happening? Vela asked, keeping her voice calm so she would not scare the children. Sabotage, Tai-Ho said. Someone disabled the emergency protocols. We are losing altitude. The shuttle began to drop. Not fast at first, but steadily, like a leaf falling from a tree. Below them, the crowded square grew larger and larger. If the shuttle crashed there, thousands would die. Including everyone on board, Tai-Ho's mind raced through every option. The main engine was failing. The backup engine was offline. The emergency landing system had been deliberately disabled. A Kieran pilot would have accepted this. The Kieran way was to face death with dignity, to find peace in the inevitable. But Taiho was not Kieran. He was human, and humans did not accept the inevitable. Vila, strap the children in tight, he said. This is going to be rough. He reached under the control panel and ripped out a section of the casing. Behind it were the manual override controls, old technology that most modern pilots never learned to use. The Kieran had abandoned manual systems centuries ago, trusting their computers completely. Taiho trusted his hands. He grabbed the manual throttle and pulled. The shuttle shuddered and groaned. Outside the windows, the city spun as Taiho forced the craft to turn away from the crowded square. "Eppa, what is happening?" Hyun called out, his voice frightened but not panicked. "We are going swimming," Taiho said through gritted teeth. "Hold on tight." He aimed the shuttle toward the ceremonial lake on the western edge of the palace grounds. It was the only open space large enough to crash without killing thousands of people, but they were coming in too fast. Too steep. Taiho pulled every trick he had learned in 20 years of flying. He adjusted the angle of descent. He used the remaining power to slow their fall. He diverted energy from every non-essential system to the forward shields. The ground rushed up at them. The lake sparkled in the morning sun. 500 meters. 100. Taiho held his breath. The shuttle hit the water with a sound like thunder. The impact threw everyone forward against their restraints. Windows cracked. Metal screamed. Water rushed in through a dozen small openings, but the shuttle held together. It floated, damaged and broken, but not destroyed. For a moment, there was silence. Then Yuna's voice came from the back. "Appa, are we swimming now?" Taiho let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "Yes, little one. We are swimming. Time to get out." He unbuckled himself and moved to the emergency hatch. His hands were shaking, but he forced them steady. He opened the hatch and helped Vila lift the children out onto the wing of the shuttle, which floated just above the water. Rescue boats were already coming from the shore. People were running toward the lake. Above them, news drones circled, recording everything. Vela looked at Taiho. There was water dripping down his face, and blood from a cut on his forehead. "You did it," she said. "We did it," he corrected. "We are a family. We survived together." When the rescue boats arrived, the workers stared at the wreckage in disbelief. The shuttle was completely destroyed. By all logic, everyone inside should be dead. But a human man was standing on the wing, holding 2 children while his wife climbed down beside him. All 4 of them were alive. The crowd on the shore had seen everything. They had watched the shuttle fall. They had watched the human pilot fight against death itself and win. Word spread through the city within hours. The human had saved the princess. The human had saved the children. The human had done what no Kieran pilot could have done. He had refused to die. Back at the palace, Prince Sorel watched the news reports from his private chambers. His hands were shaking. The sabotage had been his plan. He had paid engineers to disable the emergency systems. He had expected the shuttle to crash into the square, killing Vela, the children, and hundreds of innocent people. The tragedy would have turned public opinion against the half-bloods forever. Instead, the human had survived. And worse, he had become a hero. Sorel smashed a vase against the wall. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were weak. Humans were primitive. Humans could not do things like this, but this one had, in another part of the palace. The Empress stood at her window, watching the rescue boats bring the family to shore. Her face showed nothing, as always. But inside, something had shifted. She had seen the flight recordings. She had watched the human pilot take manual control and fight against impossible odds. She had seen his hands move with skill and precision that her own pilots did not possess. And she had seen his face in that final moment before impact. There was no fear there, no acceptance of death, only determination. The Empress had ruled for 60 years. She had seen wars and plagues and political crises. She had made hard choices and sacrificed much for her empire. but she had never seen anything like this. Perhaps. She thought her daughter had been right. Perhaps purity was not strength. Perhaps the future belonged to those who could adapt, who could fight, who could refuse to surrender even when all hope was gone. Perhaps. The humans had something the Kirin had lost long ago. She turned away from the window and called for her advisors. She had a decision to make. And for the first time in many years, she knew exactly what it would be. The investigation took only one day. The evidence was clear. Engineers came forward with messages proving that Prince Sorel had paid them to sabotage the shuttle. Security recordings showed his private meetings with known criminals. Bank records revealed payments made in secret. Sorel was arrested in his chambers on the morning after the crash. He did not go quietly. He screamed that he was the rightful heir, that the half-bloods were destroying the empire, that history would prove him right. The guards dragged him away. The Empress watched from her throne, her face as still as carved stone. When Sorel was gone, she called for the court to gather one final time. Everyone came. Nobles, advisors, scientists, servants. Even common citizens were allowed into the back of the hall to witness what would happen next. The news of the assassination attempt had spread throughout the empire, and everyone wanted to see how it would end. Villa stood at the front of the hall with Taiho and the children. For the first time, Taiho was allowed inside the throne room. He wore simple clothes, not royal robes. He stood straight and calm, showing no fear and asking for no approval. The Empress rose from her throne and descended the steps slowly. She walked until she stood directly in front of her daughter. 7 years ago, the Empress began, her voice carrying through the silent hall. I lost you. I mourned you. I buried your memory and tried to continue ruling an empire that grows weaker with each passing year. She paused. I did not search for you. I accepted the reports and moved forward. This was a failure. My failure. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The Empress never admitted fault. Never. Your brother tried to kill you, she continued. He tried to kill your children. He was willing to sacrifice hundreds of innocent lives to protect what he believed was the purity of our bloodline. She looked out at the assembled nobles. This is what purity has given us. Fear, stagnation. A prince who would murder children to prevent change. She turned back to Vila. I have ruled this empire for 60 years. In that time, I have watched our population decline. I have watched our young people lose hope. I have watched other species grow and spread across the galaxy while we hold on to traditions that no longer serve us. The Empress reached out and took Vila's hands in her own. It was the first time mother and daughter had touched since Vila's return. I was wrong, the Empress said. About the humans, about your children, about everything. She released Vila's hands and turned to face the crowd. Princess Vila is hereby restored to her full rank and position as Crown Princess of the Kirin Empire. Her children, Yuna and Hian, are recognized as legitimate heirs to the throne. The hall erupted in noise. Some cheered. Some protested. Most simply stared in shock. The Empress raised her hand, and silence returned. These children carry both Kirin and human blood. Some of you see this as a weakness. I see it as our greatest hope. They are proof that we can change, that we can grow, that we do not have to fade into history like so many other species before us. She looked at Yuna and Heian, who stood holding their parents' hands. The future of the Kirin Empire walks among us today. It has silver hair and warm skin. It has royal blood and human courage, and it will not apologize for what it is. The Empress stepped back and sat on her throne once more. Prince Sorel will be exiled to the outer colonies, where he will live out his days in the same conditions he was willing to let others suffer. His name will be removed from all records. He is no longer part of this family. Sorel's allies in the crowd shifted nervously. Some had helped him. Some had known of his plans. They waited to see if they too would be punished. But the Empress was wise. She knew that too much punishment would create more enemies. Instead, she offered a choice. Those who supported my son may step forward now and swear loyalty to the crown princess. If they do so honestly, the past will be forgotten. We cannot build a new future if we are constantly fighting old battles. One by one, nobles came forward and knelt before Vela. Some did so quickly, eager to be on the winning side. Others hesitated before finally bowing their heads. A few turned and left the hall entirely, choosing exile over acceptance. Vela accepted each oath with grace. She did not gloat. She did not punish. She simply nodded and allowed them to rise. When it was done, the Empress spoke once more. There is one more matter to address. Looked at Taiho, who had remained silent throughout the entire ceremony. Park Taiho of Earth, you saved my daughter from slavery. You gave her 2 remarkable children, and yesterday you saved all 3 of them from certain death, along with countless civilians who would have died if the shuttle had crashed into the square. Taiho met her gaze evenly. He did not bow or look away. The Kirin Empire offers you a title, the Empress said. Lands, wealth, a position at court. You would become Lord Taiho, first human noble of the Empire. Everyone held their breath. This was unprecedented. A human had never held rank in Kirin society. Taiho considered for a moment. Then he shook his head. Thank you, he said, but no. Shocked murmurs filled the hall. I am not a lord, Taiho continued. I am a pilot. I fly ships. That is what I know, and that is what I am good at. Give me a ship, and I will serve the Empire. Give me a title, and I will only disappoint you. The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time anyone could remember, she smiled. It was small and brief, but it was real. Then fly for us, she said. The Imperial fleet needs pilots who can do impossible things. You will have the best ship we can build, Taiho nodded. That I can accept. The ceremony ended. People began to leave, talking excitedly about everything they had witnessed. The world had changed in a single morning, and everyone knew it. Later that evening, Bella and Taiho stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The children were inside, sleeping peacefully for the first time since they had arrived at the palace. We did it, Bella said softly. I cannot believe we actually did it. Taiho put his arm around her shoulders. You did it. I just crashed a shuttle into a lake. Vela laughed. It was a sound Taiho had not heard in weeks. What happens now? He asked. Now we build something new, Vela said. The Empire needs to change, and change is hard. There will be resistance. There will be people who hate what we represent. But we have started something that cannot be stopped. She leaned against him. Our children will inherit a different world than the one I grew up in. They will not have to hide what they are. They will not have to choose between their 2 halves. They can be both Kirin and human, and that will be enough. Taiho looked up at the unfamiliar stars. Humans have a saying, he said. The best way to predict the future is to create it. I like that, Vela replied. Below them, the city lights stretched to the horizon. Millions of Kirin lived there, and tonight they were all talking about the same thing. The princess who came back from the dead, the human who refused to let his family die, the children who represented something impossible and new. Change had come to the Empire. Not through war or conquest, but through something far more powerful, family in the morning. Yuhen found his father on the balcony, watching the sunrise. Appa, the boy asked, are we still monsters to them? Taiho knelt down so he could look his son in the eyes. We were never monsters, he said gently. We were just something they had not seen before, and now they have. Hyun thought about this. So we do not have to be scared anymore? Taiho hugged his son tightly. We never have to be scared of who we are. Not here, not anywhere. Because we are family, and that is the strongest thing in any galaxy. The sun rose over the capital city of the Kirin Empire. It was a new day, and for the first time in 1,000 years. The future was uncertain, but uncertainty, the humans knew, was just another word for possibility. And possibility was something worth fighting for.